Hello! Hi! Welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. Okay, so what did we do yesterday? Can anyone remember? Oh, I remember. We looked at some sentences using the past simple tense, didn't we? Yes, that's right. We had to decide what the correct form of the verb was. We had to conjugate the verb and put it into the past simple. Okay, right then. Well, in that case, let's try something similar. Let's have a look at some more sentences, but this time, let's use two different tenses. All of the following sentences require either the present simple or the present continuous. Are you ready? Steady. Go! You recognize that woman. I think I know her, but I not remember her name. How you get to work normally? I usually go by metro and tram, but tomorrow I go in Billy's car. I always do the lottery, but I never win anything. Your motorbike make a very strange noise. You think it's all right? Yes, it always make that noise. Where be Kenneth? He be in the living room. What he do? He watch a football match on TV. Hi, Kenneth. What you do? I watch a football match on TV. You usually watch football on TV? No, but this be very exciting match. It rain? Yes, it rain very hard. It's like a monsoon. She always carry an umbrella in her bag. Okay, so how did you get on? Were they as easy as you expected? Well, let's find out, shall we? Okay, well, let's start at the start. Let's begin at the beginning with number one. Okay, so number one. And what is the first thing we notice about number one? That's right, it's a question. Okay, no problem. What do we need when we want to form a question in English? Yes, we need a verb to help. We need an auxiliary verb. Okay, but we have to decide if we're using the present simple or the present continuous. Which one do we need? Yes, because the verb is recognized, we know that we don't use this verb in the continuous. Recognized is only used in simple tenses. So we know that we have to use the present simple. Okay, and what does this mean? Well, this means that we have to form a present simple question. Okay, and how do we do that? Easy. We use the verb to do as an auxiliary verb. Okay, now, is there anything we have to be careful of? Well, yes, there are two things we need to watch out for. The first thing is that the verb to do changes in the present simple. Let's conjugate the verb to do. I do, you do, he, she, it does. We do, you do, they do. Okay, so as we can see in the table, there are two forms for the verb to do. It depends on which subject we're using. If we're using I, you, we, you or they, then the correct form of the verb to do in the present simple tense is do. If we're talking about the third person singular, we have to be careful, because then the correct form of the verb to do in the present simple is does. Good. Now, where else do we have to be careful? Yes, that's right. We have to be careful when we form a question, because we have to change the word order, don't we? When we use the present simple tense to make a positive sentence, then all we have to think about is the fact that the verb will change in the third person singular. That's all. I work in a studio. Alfredo Benchfield works in a bank. Now, when we make a negative sentence with the present simple tense, then things change a little bit, don't they? When we want to make a negative sentence in the present simple, we need to use the auxiliary verb do in connection with not. I do not work in a bank. Alfredo Benchfield does not work in a studio. Okay, now in that last example, we can see that when we make a negative sentence in the present simple, we conjugate the auxiliary verb. We don't say Alfredo doesn't works in a studio. No, we conjugate the auxiliary verb and leave the other verb, the main verb, in the infinitive. Okay, and what about questions in the present simple? Well, as we already know, we need to use the auxiliary verb to do here as well. But when we're forming a question, the auxiliary verb comes before the subject. Do I work in a bank? Does Alfredo Benchfield work in a studio? Again, we conjugate the auxiliary verb, not the main verb. In the sentence above, we use does for Alfredo, the third person singular form of the verb to do, and the main verb remains in the infinitive. Okay, so back to where we started from. We have to make sure that we have an auxiliary verb, and we have to make sure that if we're asking a question, then we have to start with the auxiliary verb and follow it with the subject. Oh, and if it's a question, we have to put a question mark at the end, but you know all that, don't you? Of course you do. Okay, so back to number one. So the first part of the sentence is a question, and the subject is you. And we know that it's a present simple question because we don't use the verb to recognize in the continuous. Okay, this means that we have to use the auxiliary verb to do, and the correct form for the second person singular, or you, is do. So our sentence begins with do. Now, after do, we know that we have to follow with the subject. So, do you. Now, we know that we don't change the main verb. So, do you recognize that woman? Do you recognize that woman? Great. Now, what about the rest of the sentence? Well, there are two more verbs, and we need to decide about the tense to use. Now, the verb to think and to remember are both verbs that we don't really use with the continuous tenses. Here's a list of verbs that we don't use in the present continuous. Like, love, want, know, understand, remember, prefer, hate, need, mean, believe, forget. Now, you can see that think is not on the list. That's because it is possible to use think in the present continuous, but only when we're talking about the activity of thinking. In our sentence, we're not using it as an activity. So, like remember, it has to stay in the present simple. Okay, good. OJ, bad. So, what's the rest of the sentence? Well, the first part of the answer is simple. I think. We don't need to change anything. I think I know her. Okay, and what about the last part of the sentence? Well, the only difficult aspect is the fact that it's a negative. So, we have to use the auxiliary verb, don't we? Yes, and so it becomes, but I do not remember her name. Okay, let's put all that together, shall we? Do you recognize that woman? I think I know her, but I don't remember her name. Brilliant! Well done! And on we go to the next one, number 2. Well, it starts with a question, but there's also a question word. And the subject is the second person singular, you. So, because there's a question word, we start with that. How? Okay, now after the question word, we put the auxiliary verb, and it's the second person singular, so that means it's do. Okay, so how do, and then the subject, you. Okay, so how do you, and then the rest of the sentence. The main verb remains in the infinitive, and we just add everything else. How do you get to work normally? And what about the answer? Well, the first word in the answer is usually. And when we use words like usually, always, never, rarely, and sometimes, we use them with the present simple. So, this means that we know that the first verb, go, is in the present simple. And what's the correct present simple form for go in the first person singular? I go. Correct, the flip-flops for the beach in Vietnam, sonny. So, the answer starts with I usually go by metro and tram. Okay, and what about the next part? Okay, now the next part is which tense? Well, we're talking about tomorrow, so it's not the present simple. And we know that we can use the present continuous in the same way that we use going to talk about future plans. This is a plan for the future. This is something that I planned with Billy in the past, and it's going to happen tomorrow in the future. So, the second part of the sentence is in the present continuous. Okay, so how do we make the present continuous? Well, who remembers? You all do. I was just kidding. Okay, so to make the present continuous tense, we use the verb to be and we add ing to the infinitive of the verb. So in this example, we change it to I am, going, go plus ing. Okay, so let's put all that together. How do you get to work normally? I usually go by metro and tram, but tomorrow I'm going in Billy's car. Excellent, brilliant. And on to number 3. And number 3 is super easy. Always and never. Okay, and what do we know about these words? That's right, Captain Banana. When we use these words, we generally use them with the present simple. So immediately, we know that the 2 verbs are in the present simple. Simple. So, what's the correct sentence? I always do the lottery, but I never win anything. Brilliant, magic, and oh, knackers, we're out of time. Yes, that's all we have time for today. So, well, this means that you've got some extra time to finish the exercise. Great, homework on TV. Okay, a strange idea perhaps, but let's give it a try. Okay, so if you didn't manage to finish all of the sentences, then you can finish them tonight or tomorrow. And in tomorrow's lesson, the first thing we'll do is check the rest of the exercise together. Okay? Okay! Right then, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll carry on where we left off today. See you all later. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you all tomorrow. And don't forget, if you need more English, www.m5tv.hu. See you later. Bye.